How we doing, everybody? It is January 17th, and it is Wednesday, my dudes. I am here with my good friends Brian Sarver and Christian Mills. I'm, of course, Chase Owens, host of Hot Route Takes. We are ready to recap a fun wildcard weekend. One, we saw some games that turned out not quite how we expected. When you got our thoughts in the preview episode when we last talked to you all, um, I'm not going to beat around the bush. The first game here was a shellacking. It was the Houston Texans, guys, really turning up the noise and the offensive firepower against said Cleveland Browns at home on the way to a 45 to what was it, 17 final, something like 14. Wow, yeah, they really were the team that showed up on Saturday in the first playoff game of the 2024 NFL season. Cleveland came out and moved the ball. That was my thoughts early on. Joe Flacco and Njoku had been a strong connection in the regular season. That continued. But as I kind of touched on in the preview, if Houston was able to get after Joe Flacco and force him into mistakes, which he had done, that would spell trouble for Cleveland. And I think that's exactly where this game turned. Back-to-back pick sixes from the Houston defense, and that pretty much salted the game away from there. Houston offense was lights out pretty much all day, and CJ Stroud a great day. But not the best performance of wildcard weekend. We'll get, as far as quarterbacks, we'll get more into those guys later on. But what's your takeaways from this game, guys? Both of you guys were on Cleveland, so obviously a bit shocked to see Houston come out and dominate in the fashion they did. But what things broke down and led to that for Houston, and what players were you impressed with? What do you expect from Houston moving forward? We'll kind of leave that for the preview show itself, but just what do you think about both of these teams and what went down on Saturday afternoon, the first playoff game, guys?
Well, as far as Cleveland goes, I think one thing that really showed up in this football game is their lack of running game. That's kind of just deteriorated as the season has went on. You know, losing Nick Chubb, losing a couple of offensive linemen. It's just kind of they had to change their identity on offense, and they've kind of been riding this Joe Flacco train the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, and he has delivered for the most part, but he has turned the ball over. And in this game, he kind of regressed back down. Came back down to earth a little bit with interceptions, 2 pick sixes. So they're not just any interceptions. They drastically changed this game. I mean, you're looking at 14 points. That's all Cleveland scored. So, and then you look at the other side of the ball, and really where this team has made its name is from its defense, and their defense just got. I mean, rookie quarterback comes in and lights them up. I think he played extremely well. They didn't have too much of a rushing attack. Devin Singletary, 66 yards rushing, 5.1 yards per carry, so it was a nice compliment to their passing game, which is what I took away from this. Houston went in there and threw the ball. CJ Stroud looked near perfect in this game against a top-end defense. That makes me think Houston's a legit contender the rest of the way.
Yeah, for me, just on Cleveland side, my big thing was Amari Cooper only had 59 yards on the game. Then you have, these guys like Elijah Moore you traded for. David Bell's kind of been in the mix now, and it's neither of those guys been able to go. So it's just been David Njoku, Amari Cooper, then who? And it's just like in games like this, I mean, I've said it a long time ago on the pod, to win playoff games, more than likely, whoever has the most rushing yards is going to win the game. And I mean, that's what happened in this game, but granted, I mean, on the Houston side of thing, man, Cleveland had to know Nico Collins was coming into town. I mean, no Tank Dell. You know who their number one is. And the guy still almost had 100 yards. He had, 6 catches, 96, 16 average, 1 touchdown. To me, that's where the game kind of gets out of hand when, I mean, on Houston side, they shut down your guy, Mark Cooper. And then on y'all's side, y'all could not stop Nico Collins. I think that's really where this game – other than that, I think really what changes is what Brian said. The Joe Flacco, 2 interceptions. I just feel like for Joe Flacco and his age, and I think all of y'all will agree with this, he's not a guy that should be sitting back there and throwing for, 46 passes. Then on the other side, you got CJ Stroud throwing for 21. Granted, you can look at it how you want to, but to me, that's this big difference maker. Just you cannot have a Joe Flacco throwing the ball almost 50 times in a playoff game.
Yeah. That pretty much sums up. I liked your early point there, Christian, of Amari Cooper being shut down. I saw a stat saying with God, Stingley. Sorry, it was blanking on me for a minute. Hit with him in coverage on Cooper. I believe there wasn't a catch allowed the each time they matched up, and obviously in the regular season, Cooper set a franchise record for receiving yards. So flipping the
Mhm.
script in that direction was huge for Houston and that defense. And the pick sixes were the things that did Cleveland in and really just put this game out of hand. So that was the biggest margin of victory, I believe, on Wild Card Weekend. Although one game was a bit more of a blowout from start to finish. We'll get on here shortly, but the next one we have was the primetime Saturday game, the much talked about freezing below freezing temperature game between the Chiefs and the Dolphins. Brian, you were not exactly optimistic for your Dolphins coming in this one, considering the injuries to the defense and the weather and all this, that, and the other coming into this game. But we saw that the Chiefs, they came away with a victory, 26-7 final, but they still just don't look like a heavyweight like they do in the past. So that leads me to ask you what went wrong for Miami, because a good Miami performance, one we're more used to in the regular season that they gave in the first half of the regular season, would have been good enough to steal this game on the road. But nothing to speak of from offense, really, and that was a bit puzzling. So, what went down in this game to finish off the season for the Dolphins, and anything you have moving forward for what they may need to do or change for next season?
So starting out with the defense, I actually thought the defense played very admirably, especially since you're going against Pat Mahomes and Arrowhead in the freezing cold weather. You're down a bunch of starters, 6 guys, and you just signed a bunch of guys off the street to rush the passer. Despite that, we held them to field goal after field goal after field goal in the red zone. I thought that they really contested things the best they could given the circumstances, but at the end of the day, the offense let the team down. That's the reason the game went the way it did. And I really backtracked, look at kind of what happened this season, and really the first team to really slow down Miami from a schematic perspective, not a lack of execution on Miami's part, was Kansas City the first time that they played. And credit to the defensive coordinator for Kansas City, Spagnuolo. I think he's been phenomenal, and he was phenomenal in this game. He really constricted Miami big time. He forced Tua to have to move past his first read, forced him off of his spot. He forced him to have to try to make a play, and Tua was checking the ball down, even though there wasn't many opportunities to check it down to somebody open because they were on that too. And the plays that were made were, the touchdown was an underthrown ball. Everyone saw it, and Tyreek made a play there. So this is a pretty poor performance from the offense, but it's not just Tua. And that's been the scapegoat. That's who everyone's pointing fingers at. This offense has slowed down dramatically from the start of the season, and it's kind of been a escalating thing. It's been continuing to happen. It's not like a player didn't execute, a player didn't have a bad game. The offensive line, the interior three, were decimated this year. We were running with backups. And in the offense like we have that is predicated on timing and precision passing, your receivers are getting jammed, your offensive line's getting beat. I sent you guys a little text in the group chat, and it was true pass set. So when Tua has to do a traditional step back or traditional drop back, and it's not a play action pass, not RPO, Miami was near the bottom. So offensive line's a problem, forcing it to the first read because of many things. Part of it is Tua gets the ball out of his hands quickly with a quick release, good footwork, and he's accurate in doing so and can anticipate windows opening up. That's been the offense. So when they forced Tua off his first read, the offensive line crumbles. Tua's not a playmaker. He's not going to skip the pocket and make a big run. And, all of our guys were banged up as well. You look at Tyreek Hill. He's banged up going into the game. Jalen Waddle's been limping around all week before the game. Raheem Mostert just came back, not 100%. Devon Achane was 100%. And I don't know why we didn't give him more carries, but that's besides the point. It's a whole thing with Miami's offense. It's very skill specific. So going forward, I think for Miami, if you want to be taken seriously, you want to be a true Super Bowl contender, you got to have another counterpunch. It can't be just the outside zone and then the play action hole shot between the numbers and the hash. They got to add an element to this offense, and they got to be able to run the football in the playoffs in cold weather, because we've seen what it looks like with Tua in the playoffs in the cold, and he has to, carry the team on his back. That's not going to happen. But I did want to bring some enlightenment thoughts. I mean, it's not the end of the world for Miami, because if you look at two players, I won't get the stats right, but Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. What do you think their road playoff record was?
Of career,
Yep, in their career.
I'd definitely go sub 500 for both. I'd probably lean more at like a 2-to-1 loss ratio to wins, honestly.
Drew Brees was 2-5 on the road in the playoffs in his career, and Peyton Manning, sorry, I'll look it up real quick, was 3-5. And that is the archetype quarterback Tua is. And when you are in cold conditions, it makes everything, the timing, the rhythm of the offense, everything is thrown off. You must be able to run the football. I'm done with my rant. Dolphins are okay. It's not the end of the world, but that's kind of what happened this year.
All right, man. I'm not going to beat the drum too hard on you, Dolphins, but I will say my big thing that I think, I seen, and I don't know if it was because, I'm seeing Isaiah Pacheco on the other side, but I don't have a power guy in the running game. You really don't. You say Jeff Wilson is that guy. I don't agree with that. He's really not that guy. But you got Raheem Mostert and you have A-Chain, and with the cold, you can say they're not as speedy as they are. I don't want to say that's an excuse, but I just think y'all went away from the run game so early, and then by doing that, you're trying to play, I guess you can say, Patrick Mahomes ball. I mean, Andy Reid showed very early in the game he was going to let Patrick Mahomes throw it. They tried to do it on their first drive. And I just think we went away from the running game so much, and it blows my mind because, last week we talked about A-Chain, that he led the team in almost yards for a lot of the game. Then you just turn around and not do anything with him blows my mind. And then, you have Jalen Waddle out there for only 2 catches. And then Cedric Wilson's kind of been your number 2 in this game, and he's shown, he only had the 3 catches, but it just, you can say you were banged up, but I just think great teams find a way. That's just what I'm going to say. You can agree, disagree with it, Brian, but my big thing is just Tua has not shown to me that he's worth, big money. I know we'll save this for another pod, but he's good, not elite, is all I'm going to say on Tua. We'll have another pod probably going deeper into why I believe that. But on the KC side, another thing is, Rice had a field day. Then, you said your defense played great, but in reality, this is their number 1. This is who they knew they should have stuck. Travis Kelce kind of went back. Travis Kelce could have had a bigger day if he didn't drop the ball. He had some big drops in that game. So, for me, it was just KC really did whatever they wanted. Disappointed in your offense just because, I told you this off the pod. Y'all play KC. KC went and did the same thing they did to you in the first matchup. In this matchup, y'all just didn't adjust to it. So, like you said, I don't know if you want to blame your coaching staff, Tua, who you want to put blame on. But to me, it's just a lot of people are at it blame because you played this team. They showed you what they were going to do, came in and did identical thing, and you didn't adjust to it. This blew my mind on just Miami side.
Anything to add to finish here, Brian, on your Dolphins?
I would say the defense actually overplayed my expectations, especially since the offense barely had the ball most of the game, and Kansas City just continued to drive the ball but had to work for a lot of it. And we get down to the red zone, the defense would hold. And, this game was, what was it, 16-7 at halftime? Despite the offense not doing anything, they were in the game. And they got the ball to come out the second half. If you go and score a touchdown right there, and you continue to play defense the way you were, the game is different. So the defense, despite not having a lick of pass rush, was zero blitzing the heck out of Patrick Mahomes. And they were getting home. He had to, yes, Travis Kelce had drops, but the offense they were playing was not on schedule. It was Patrick Mahomes making plays. If you watch the game, how many times he escaped the pocket and run and make a play on third down? Like the guy, credit to Patrick Mahomes. He's a monster.
He's the best scrambler in the league. I've said it before. He is the best. He's always like just fast enough. Like he's always just fast enough to get past the guy chasing him on the defense and scramble. And when he scrambles to throw, he's prolongs it just long enough for his guy to get open. He's the best scrambler in the league. That's why I fear him in the playoffs. And the Chiefs really just rode that to a victory on a cold night in Arrowhead. So that'll put the bow on the Dolphins season. I think it was a great season, but obviously the second half was hurt with injuries and underperformance on the offense. So we'll see what they do in the offseason to rebuild, retool, and try to make a run at things next year. So moving forward, we go to the Sunday matchups, and the first one was the biggest upset in terms of seeding. The Green Bay Packers, the 7 seed, the last wild card in the NFC, pulled up a big upset over the 2 seed Dallas Cowboys, who have really just become a meme of playoff football at this point, in my lifetime at least. Really just terrible performance. The defense, nowhere to be found all day. Jordan Love played a near perfect game, I would say. 16 of 21, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, Aaron Jones being back healthy and available in the playoffs is huge. 21 carries, 118 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Man, the Packers just own the Cowboys. There's no way around it. They got off to a hot start, got Dallas behind 14-0 quickly. Dak threw a couple picks, which he had been so good at home all year. And the Cowboys offense really just put up empty stats because they were playing from behind the rest of the game. I mean, if you look at box score and you see Dak Prescott throw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, you're like, oh, well, how bad could he have played? No, he played pretty bad. And they were bad from the jump and got behind because of his interceptions and because of the Green Bay offense just moving the ball at will. That was my takeaway. I think Jordan Love's really just firmly planted himself as the guy in Green Bay, another future franchise quarterback. They've had 3 straight of these now. Just great stuff from Green Bay. Can they do it again against the best team in the NFC for my money next week? We'll talk about that in the preview show. But guys, what do you take from this football game? The Packers being a great team and having a great performance, or the Cowboys just being the old Dallas Cowboys of playoff football past and laying an egg at home in front of the world?
I think it's a little bit of both. Honestly, I think for Dallas side of things, it just fell apart on them. But at the same time, you got to have some of these marquee wins. And this is just too often does this happen to Dallas. You got to wonder what is rotten at the core of this thing. What is causing us to lose all these big games? And why can't we get over the hump? I don't think it's necessarily Dak Prescott. I think it's deeper than that.
Starts at the top.
Yeah,
Jerry Jones to me.
I would say Jerry Jones. That's kind of where my head is with that, and you could see that he was not happy in this game. But Dak Prescott throws the ball 3 times more than Jordan Love with 60 attempts in this game. That's insane to me. But I think just credit Jordan Love in this offense. And Romeo Doubs had the game of his life in this 151 yards receiving a touchdown. And like I said, they don't have a true number one. They got a bunch of young guys, and guys are stepping up each and every week. And, receivers are cool and all that, but you got to have a special quarterback to week in and week out have a different number one target. And that's what they have. I think Jordan Love is continuing to just show the goods. I mean, in this game, off the back foot, sidearm, over the top, into the end zone. I mean, the guy's got all the arm talent in the world. And I know Packers fans are reminiscing. I mean, looks just like Aaron Rodgers out there.
Goodness. All right, man. I had to, when I thought about this game, I thought about a guy, and I had to steal one from his book. And that's Stephen A. Smith. So how about them Cowboys? We will talk real quick. And, my biggest problem was CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott not being on the same page at the beginning. I mean, it was bad, ugly. We've not seen it all year. So that was a big what's going on for me. And then other than that, it's just, Jake Ferguson was really the only guy that could really depend on early in the game. And if you're telling me that tells me all I need to know about what happened to Dallas. And Tony Pollard just is not what they thought he was. It's a good way to put it. They thought he was going to be what Zeke has been for them, and he just isn't that. But granted, it's not his fault. Dak Prescott threw the picks. he couldn't get his opportunities by that time, but just overall season view, Tony Pollard is not the guy. And the last thing I will say, is I don't think Mike McCarthy is the guy either. I just really don't. Jared Jones is hired. Yes, man, is a good way to put it. And I think that's something he needs to go away from. But knowing Jerry, it's not going to
Jerry
happen. But
Jones.
it just moving forward, it's a problem with Jerry. They're not going to win if he keeps hiring his guys. They need to go out. I mean, Mike McCarthy, we talking about the Packers. He was there. How many Super Bowls did he win with Aaron? That tells me a lot right there. He had a great team surrounded by Aaron, couldn't finish the job. But on the Packers side, I mean, Jordan Love is climbing the ranks. I think for everyone in NFL, definitely on this pod. And I just think I'm going to hit really what Brian said. It's just the wide receivers, man. I mean, Reed is the guy that I've been hitting the drum on a lot, saying, hey, this is their guy. This is their number one. He didn't do nothing. 0 catches, 0 yards. And then Wicks has been another guy that kind of came on out of nowhere, late draft pick guy. So it's just whoever they want. And I think that's what's really giving defenses struggle. They don't know who to really attack. But the big thing I know definitely on the broadcast they hit on a lot was Dallas wasn't even playing their defense. It was a lot of zone, not man-to-man. I don't know. I mean, if they were scared of Jordan Love crazy enough to, I mean, they maybe was, but it just blows my mind. They've been playing this man-to-man defense all year, and just for some reason, this game, they decided, oh, well, we're going to go to zone. And Jordan Love, I mean, say what you want, he picked it apart. And I think, Romeo Dobbs, Phil Day, Brian hit on it, but I just think just moving forward, too, the defense played great. I mean, amazing. They had the 2 turnovers. And then the last thing I'll hit on is just if the defense can play like this moving forward, I understand who they're playing next week. We'll talk about it on the next pod, but this is a scary team to play right now just because how hot Jordan Love is right now.
Yes, wholeheartedly agree there, Christian. And for the Cowboys, I'll say this. This is why the start of each postseason game is vital. When you're at home and you have the pressure of being a 2 seed against the 7 seed and you get quickly down 14-0, every fan in that stadium and every player on that Cowboys sideline is thinking, oh no, here we go again. And you're already feeling that pressure mount up. And I'm telling you, it's such a key to getting off to good starts, especially when you're the favorite in these postseason matchups. Credit to Green Bay for jumping the gun, punching Dallas in the mouth, and really just continuing to work on offense all day long behind Jordan Love and company. So big win for the Packers there. They advanced. The Sunday night game, I'll say, was the best game of Wild Card Weekend. It's typically how it goes. Not a lot of exciting matchups with this new wild card format. You got the 2-7 matchups and stuff like that. A lot more blowouts than you like, but this one was anything but a closely contested matchup between the Lions and the Rams. Ultimately, Dan Campbell gets Detroit's first playoff victory in nearly 30 years, I believe it is. 24-23 final for the Lions. Man, I mean, it was back and forth. Each quarterback, I'll say it, was really just hooping, man. I mean, Jared Goff, I respect too. You played a really good game. I thought Matt Stafford actually played better, but he didn't finish in the red zone. The Rams had a lot of trouble there, even though Puka Nacua just had a marvelous day, man. I mean, I hate co-awards, but I'd love to see CJ Stroud and Puka Nacua get co-rookie of the year in terms of offensive rookie of the year in the NFL. I mean, they both had magical seasons. They had magical playoff debuts. And Puka went for $180 and scored a touchdown. Matt Stafford hoop, but it wasn't enough. Dan Campbell's Lions get that stop. They get that late conversion to Amon-Ra St. Brown to salt the game away, and they are playing at home again next week for a chance to go to the NFC Championship. Two great teams, two well-coached teams, I think. What was the key difference? Which player, what team side of the ball made a play that you took from this game, guys? And what do you expect moving forward for this Detroit team? Or do you see them playing an NFC Championship? We'll kind of touch on that more in the preview pod, but just a big win for that franchise in that city. So go ahead, guys. What do you see from this one?
Really, I thought it was just so poetic, really, for Jared Goff. Getting traded from the Rams to Detroit, and a lot of people, myself included, oh man, he's gonna waste his career away in Detroit when that trade happened. Well, They built this thing up. They've turned this program around, and Dan Campbell, and Jared Goff have gotten a playoff win in Detroit. And they did the impossible in doing so. Jared Goff and Dan Campbell give him the game ball after the game in the locker room and said, "Hey, man, you're good enough for Detroit. I tell you that." And so, you know, I just thought that's an awesome thing. Jared Goff played a good game here. Just the balanced attack that they've kind of had all season long. I think that will continue, and I think that Detroit beat a good Rams team. The Rams put forth their best effort, and they still won the game. I think that solidifies Detroit in my book as being a legit team. I already thought they were legit, but I did have my questions as far as like, can they compete with the top end teams in the league? I still have my reservations there, but man, credit to them. Credit to Detroit. Credit to Matthew Stafford for sticking in there and playing in this game, even though he was getting hit, man. He took some shots and still played an excellent game. And then one last thing I want to say real quick is I couldn't believe the Detroit fans booed this man after all the great seasons he gave them. I just thought that was horrible, man.
I think if it's regular season, there's no shot he's getting booed, but just the environment and it being a playoff game, first home playoff game in quite some time, I still didn't like that either, Brian. But maybe I think they play in Detroit again next year, so regular season maybe they give him a better ovation. But he didn't let that bother him. To your point, played a heck of a game. Christian, your thoughts on the Rams and the Lions and what you saw from this football game?
Yeah, the boos were because that's the old lines. This is the new lines. That's what the boos were for. All the bad times, we're in the new times. But when, to me, this game, what blows my mind is really how everything's almost identical. I mean, first downs were like 22, 23, third down conversion, 3 for 9. The penalty yards are almost identical. I mean, total plays are identical. But the big thing that to me that a lot of people aren't talking about is Raheem Morris, I believe, is the DC for the Rams, and just his adjustments from halftime coming back out is, I mean, that guy earns a head coaching job somewhere. Just from what the Lions were doing to them early, I mean, they were doing whatever they wanted, had a field day. For him to make this defense too, I mean, other than Aaron Donald, a couple pieces here or there, you can maybe argue, it's nothing. And for him to get this unit to play this good against a Lions team that, I mean, really, we thought maybe it'd be uglier. We just knew the offense for the Rams to be able to keep up. But, I mean, to me, the biggest game changer was really the dump offs to Gibbs in big moments. It seemed like anytime they needed a big play for a couple yards, it was not him running, just a little dump offs. And then really, I mean, St. Brown, I hit it on it. This dude was going to have a big game, and we knew it was going to happen. And then, I mean, for me, just on the Rams side too, man, the last thing is just Cooper Kupp, I don't think, is 100%. Is a good way to put it. They sent him in motion a lot. He's a decoy. I mean, I hate to say it about him, but at this point, I don't know if it's just he didn't get to 100%. But, I mean, for the Rams at least, it works for Puka Nacua, favors him a lot. But if they would have a Cooper Kupp healthy, this offense would be even on another level. But I just think the Lions defense definitely shown that they can stop the run at this point, maybe you can argue, because the Rams and Williams been having a field day, and they really didn't let him go anywhere like that. Then just a two-headed monster. We seen it wasn't nothing crazy, but just Montgomery, Gibbs, and just Sam Laporta on the one touchdown he had when Skipper came in. I think that was Detroit ha-ha moment maybe to make that play, draw it up. Hey, he's checking in. Sam Laporta touchdown. So I just think this is a new Lions team. I'm ready to see what we see out of them next week.
I think that OC will be the best hire. Whoever hires him as a head coach, whoever hires that man as a head coach, he will be the best hire. As long as he's not going just to a terrible situation like Carolina, which he obviously declined that interview, but something along those lines, he can make a franchise and a decent quarterback pretty dang good because he's cooking some stuff up. Fun stuff out in Detroit, man. That was a heck of a game, the game of wildcard weekend for our money. So we get to Monday. It ended up being 2 games instead of just the one Monday night game. Because of some weather out in Buffalo, the game got pushed back to Monday afternoon. And the Bills, I didn't have a whole lot to say of this game. It pretty much went exactly how I thought it was. And honestly, I think the Steelers did a fine job to keep this one a 31-17 final. They got to within a score at one point in this game in the fourth quarter. Just credit to the coaching staff and finding a way like they tend to do to make this one competitive. But ultimately, the Bills and Josh Allen just made too many just back-breaking plays. He is so hard to tackle in open field. Even when you got him down for a sack, he's hard to bring down for those negative plays. Time and time again, he did that in this one, guys, and ended up with just over 200 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Kincaid had a nice touchdown catch, and Cook had a pretty strong game on the ground. You partner that with Pittsburgh's offense just not having that firepower to keep up. This game played out how I expected it to, so I don't have a lot more to add on the 31-17 victory out in Buffalo. You guys care to give your thoughts on how this one played out?
I don't have a whole lot to say. I agree with you, Chase. This kind of went to expectation. The Steelers' offense struggling, their coaching staff scheming things up, doing things, coaching well, keeping them in this game and giving them every opportunity, but just not enough on Steelers' offense. And then no TJ Watt showed up in this game quite a few times. But I think the main takeaway for me is Josh Allen, playoff Josh Allen, is a running quarterback as well. Like, this guy's going to get out and he's going to take off. He had a 52-yard touchdown run in this game, and anytime he has to, he will do it. And boy, is he a handful to take down open field, and he's a handful in the passing game, as everyone knows. So credit to the Bills and Josh Allen. Not a whole lot else to say here. Oh, Najee 3.0 yards per carry showed up again. I like that.
Oh, yeah, don't worry. I was about to give it to him, but yeah, Brian gave it to him, man. Slow Najee is back, man. Golly. But no, I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm going to just, really, Josh Allen, this is why people say he is a top 3 quarterback when we get games like this. When the turnovers happen, granted, that's what I thought maybe would occur with this Pittsburgh defense, even without a TJ Watt, but like Brian said, just Josh Allen in the playoffs, different breed. I don't know what it is. This is where these guys that we talk about, instead of being good, they're elite whenever they're playing like this. But I just think, Josh Allen running, that's going to be a positive for them. Dalton Kincaid has really stepped up a lot for them this year, which he's seen in this game. And then Stephon Diggs got his, you can say, but I just think ultimately this game came down to, one, who was the better team. We knew Pittsburgh, they can get those wins, but when it comes to games like this, it just outshows who are the better teams. And I think we all agree that Buffalo is that team. And I think Buffalo and me would like to give one last shout out, and that's to the Miami Dolphins for letting them have home field advantage.
Yeah, big difference, although really the difference was them getting the 2 seed because of that, winning the AFC East and getting to play at Pittsburgh in the first round. I mean, of the 14 playoff teams, I'd pretty comfortably say the Pittsburgh Steelers were the worst. And that's no knock on them. They're still very well coached to get to 10 wins with that roster pretty much being TJ Watt, Fitzpatrick, and maybe George Pickens on offense. That's a heck of a job. But their season ended the way I thought it would. So the final matchup we got to get to here is maybe a shocker, at least a shocker the way it played out. I don't say we would be shocked given how both of these teams finished the regular season up. But, man, no team went out sadder than the Philadelphia Eagles on Wild Card Weekend. A 32-9 beat down from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Baker Mayfield just lit them up. I don't think anyone on the Eagles outside of Devontae Smith showed up to play. Like, they looked defeated. They looked like a Super Bowl hangover team that were just going through the motions, didn't want to tackle, giving up huge plays in the secondary all night to Baker and those receivers. Man, that was a pitiful performance. Is it enough to have Sirianni out the door? A lot of fans, Eagles fans, are calling for his head now. That was a very bad performance against a team that won the worst division in football. I know you're a wild card team in the Eagles, but you were favored to win that game for reasons because the roster you have compared to Tampa Bay, and they just did not even compete. I mean, it could have been worse, but the Eagles held them to a number of field goals early on. So great performance from Tampa and the Bucs. Christian, you called this one. You picked Tampa in an upset, and they probably even exceeded your expectations. So what was your takeaways from this final nightcap game on Wild Card Weekend that you liked from Tampa Bay and the disappointment you saw from the Eagles side?
Yeah, I mean, definitely for Tampa Bay, I think who their head coach is, and then with what's going on with the injuries on the Eagles side, that they were going to blitz. I mean, they did it a lot. They know that Jalen Hurts is one hurt. if they are going to try anything, it's going to be a run and play anyway. I think that's ultimately why the Eagles had to go away from the run, and then just the score started getting ran up, and they didn't have a choice. But Baker Mayfield outplayed what I thought, but I will say the Eagles couldn't tackle nobody. I don't know what it is. I know definitely Chase has probably seen the clip, but Ray Lewis on the Peyton Manning pod, whatever you want to call it, the Manny cast, it's like just the angles the Eagles select are just terrible. They're not good angles.
Yeah.
You have guys helping you on the back end, and they're just not playing where they need to be, or just trying to play, I guess you could say, hero ball and trying to be the guy that makes the tackle. But I will say White did exactly what I thought he would do, just because his D-line has not been that good. But, I mean, out of all people, I will say just one, the Chris Godwin throw that Baker hit, just he lobbed it up, and somehow Chris Godwin came down with it. And just Cade Alton, I mean, tight end for Tampa Bay, has really stepped up and became a good weapon for them. And he slowly this season's turned it up more and more. And it's just like, I mean, a lot of these other guys that has the stats, like a David Moore, Trey Palmer had the one. It's just sorry tackling. I mean, these guys, they're nothing special. They're speed kind of guys, you can say, but the Eagles had to get better at tackling. And then my last thing to hit definitely on the Eagles is just, I mean, this team is an offensive team, you can argue, and just 0 for 9 on third downs. Blows my mind. Didn't get one first down the whole game. And ultimately, I think that's where you see just, if you don't get no first downs, this is what your outcome going to be. And I will say, I don't think it's so much on Nick. It's just the guy had to replace his OC and DC, both of them in the same year. So I will say that. But how great this roster is, I don't think you can really use that as an excuse.
Yeah, to your point, Christian, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, with all the talent they do have, and going out and trading for a Pro Bowl safety and Kevin Byard. I mean, they went out all in this year as well, and they probably should have. If I was sitting at 10-1 coming off a Super Bowl, I'd be thinking the same thing. But definitely the cracks in the foundation were starting to show. The defense, I mean, from last year, this is night and day from what they were doing last year. But then on the offensive side of the ball, no AJ Brown. How different is this game with AJ Brown in there? I'm not sure, but I do think they score more points here. That's for sure. And I think Jalen Hurts maybe gets into a little bit more of a rhythm. But also, one thing I wanted to point out is I don't think Jalen Hurts was 100%. I don't think he's been 100%. I think he's kind of been a shell of himself. I'm not sure exactly what it's been, but maybe it's a knee, maybe it's something. I'm not sure. He has not played it to his standard this year. I would like to see him bounce back next year. I think he will, but he didn't look too good in this game either.
Yeah, and that really just puts a bow on the Eagles' season, especially how that second half played out, guys. Injuries, underperformance from both sides of the ball, really, and a little bit of poor coaching sprinkled in there. So it's going to be an interesting offseason. It goes to show, man, you may think your Super Bowl window is long and you can get a chance at this thing every year for 4 or 5 years straight. And one of those years, surely you'll finish it off and get the Super Bowl victory. Don't really work that way. Injuries happen, coaching philosophies, schemes. The league changes. League changes and schemes around you and
Weekly.
figures guys out. So they figure offenses out. And when you have a chance to win one, go do it. Go finish it off because it's very hard to do in this league. We'll see. I think the Eagles still have a great roster. Offseason is going to be huge. Where do they go from here? We'll talk about that more in the offseason when we preview their roster, their draft, their salary cap room, and all those things they have to maneuver around in the offseason. But that's going to put a bow on wildcard weekend for us as a recap. I know it's Wednesday, a little bit later getting to you guys. So we thank you for tuning in. Hopefully with the Monday, no, hopefully about it, with the Monday games out of the way, no more Monday playoff games. We will be able to record Monday after work and have that in your feeds on Tuesday mornings instead. So look forward to that in our next recap of the divisional round, which we are getting ready to preview for you guys shortly and have that in your feeds. So thank you all who tuned in for this recap show with us. I would encourage you to please follow all of us on Twitter. I am at ChaseOwens96. Brian is at Sarver_Brian. Christian at C_Mills241. Please rate, review the podcast itself on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Like, comment, and share. Subscribe to the YouTube page. All the YouTube and TikTok and Instagram videos. Do a like and a comment on all of those as well. We would very much appreciate it and help us grow the community through this playoff run. It's sure to be an exciting one. 8 really good football teams left, 8 Super Bowl hopeful teams left in this run. We're going to preview it each game along the ride and recap all of them as we did all year with the regular season. So thanks to all who tuned in. We look forward to hearing or joining you guys for the preview show when we record here shortly. So thank you all. Until next time, peace out.
To at home.
Damn.
Tyreek is not.